Hi everybody, this is Dank Swank. My name is Mr. G, and I'm happy to welcome you to the classiest cavern on the World Wide Web. Today, we're going to be having some gameplay in the background of the Lamborghini Sesto Elemento driving around the Hot Wheels expansion for Forza Horizon 3. And the reason that we have that is today we've got sort of a casual conversation planned regarding a video that a fellow YouTuber and very popular Forza YouTuber Ericship put out recently, in which he discusses the possibility of there being a new expansion pack for Forza Horizon 4, more specifically an expansion pack that is a continuation and a rebirth of the Hot Wheels expansion from Horizon 3. So in his video, he cites a little bit of evidence. We're going to be discussing a little bit of that and analyzing that evidence in this video. And then we're also going to discuss sort of my personal take on what this might mean, the validity of it, whether or not there actually is an expansion, under the assumption, hypothetically, that there is going to be a Hot Wheels expansion for Forza Horizon 4, the things that Playground Games can do to ensure that it's even better than the one from Horizon 3. What we're going to do is we're just going to start out just talking about the evidence that Ericship presents in his video. The first bit of evidence that he presents is an article from a website called seasonedgaming.com, and I actually have it up here. I'm just going to read off the article for you guys, just so you know exactly what's going on. It's a very short article, so I'll just read all of it for you now. So here it is. The Hot Wheels licensed expansion for Forza Horizon 3 was a big hit among fans of the popular racing franchise. Luckily for them, there may be a new Hot Wheels experience to look forward to soon. We've now heard from multiple, reliable sources that a new Hot Wheels expansion is in development for Forza Horizon 4. This will likely be announced soon, but no target release date has been shared as of this moment. Our take? Given the additional development time going into the new Forza Motorsport, it makes sense to release another major expansion for Forza Horizon 4, particularly as the game is already optimized for the Xbox Series X/S. We'll keep you updated as we learn more. Okay, so that's the first bit of evidence that Ericship cites in his video discussing the sort of the validity of the claim that Forza Horizon 4 is not only going to get another expansion, but that it's going to be a Hot Wheels themed expansion, much like the one from Horizon 3. And I'm going to be honest, ultimately, I don't know if I'd count this as evidence. So after reading through the article, I do note it's very short. There's very little information on the ground. It doesn't really provide a lot in terms of hard evidence other than it's happening, but other than that, we don't know it. But the thing is, the evidence provided isn't even necessarily accurate. You know, they're claiming that it's happening, and they claim that it's from multiple reliable sources. That's about as much information as we get as to who provided this information to Seasons Gaming. But they don't actually reference where that information is. There aren't any interviews cited, there aren't any articles from other websites or social media posts, there isn't any leak that they noticed of promotional materials or anything like that. As far as people providing this information, they don't cite that either, and it just seems... I'm tempted to think that it's not accurate information just looking at that. The fact of the matter is, if they really did have multiple reliable sources, it would be in their best interest in order to provide legitimacy, in order to show that what they're doing really is true, that they would actually provide who those sources are, whether they're certain people or certain news outlets or certain articles or certain leaks or promotional materials that were seen ahead of release. But none of that is shown, and it really does feel like they're trying to pull a fast one. No offense to Seasoned Gaming, but if they actually do have that information, please provide it, but otherwise it doesn't really seem like a legitimate story. And even Ericship mentioned in his video that it seemed as though it was a manufactured story, as if the various individuals involved or whoever wrote this story was effectively just creating a bit of hype, something to draw in people and increase ad revenue through site traffic. I think his exact words for it seems like a fake story designed to take clicks. At least that was his initial take on it. So from here we go on to the other evidence that Eric cites in his video, specifically social media posts, specifically from Twitter. The first one is from this guy who goes by Special Ed. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that. I'm assuming it's Special Ed is how it's supposed to be pronounced. Special Ed, if you're watching the video right now, feel free to comment under this one. Let us know. Basically, he comments that it's happening, that Forza Horizon 4 is going to get a Hot Wheels expansion, just to take a look at his. So, Special Ed, just for background, he runs a podcast on video games. but he made a post on Twitter saying, by the way, Randall Thor 19 is right. Hot Wheels DLC is coming to Forza Horizon 4. Was told I could say something a month ago and completely forgot. And then he has a little LOL at the end, a little laugh out loud. But what Eric's saying is that this post adds a little bit more legitimacy to the claims of the Seasoned Gaming article. That now there's multiple people saying it, so it's gotta be the case. It's that this provides a lot more hard evidence, but I'm really not convinced, and that's partly as a result of who it's coming from. Special Ed, he may have a podcast that does a lot of good stuff. I haven't personally seen it. There may be validity to this information, but it's hard for me to think that there is, just because, I mean, as somebody who himself is just a YouTuber, I wouldn't necessarily have this kind of information, and Special Ed, who, as far as I can tell, is sort of in a similar field, working as somebody who makes a podcast, I don't think his information has nearly the validity of somebody else who's a little closer to Xbox and closer to Playground Games. So the position that he's in and who he is sort of makes it seem as though this isn't a legitimate story. The second thing is he doesn't actually cite any information for who he's getting this from. The closest thing he says is that Randall Thor, who is a popular YouTuber who's really invested into different sort of rumors and sort of gossip around video games, that he speculated on it and that he's right about it. And the thing that really hits me off that this is really suspicious and sort of not really reliable information is the simple fact of the matter that he says that he was told that he could say something about it a month ago and completely forgot, which is a really odd thing for somebody to say regarding a bit of very interesting insider information on a AAA game. That's not something that you would just forget. And it's also not something that you would be told that you could just spout out on Twitter. The thing is, Forza Horizon as a franchise, it's developed by Turn 10 Studios and Playground Games, but it's also published as a first-party intellectual property of Microsoft. And as a big company that publishes AAA games, Microsoft is not going to want somebody on Twitter who isn't really closely associated with the company just casually mentioning, oh yeah, this is happening. They're going to want something that's really locked down, something where they have a big reveal either through a big commercial that premieres on the Forza Motorsport website or something going on at E3. They wouldn't just hand this information out to anybody, and based upon what Special Ed's saying, he's providing this information third hand. So just all of this together adds up to make me really question this and think that it really isn't legitimate at all. It's somebody speculating something and purporting something to be true that, as far as I can tell, is just bluster and bluff. And I don't mean any offense to maybe he does have this information, but as far as I can tell, and maybe it is legitimate, but just from what I'm looking at, it seems a little questionable. The person that he does cite, the one person that he mentions in the context of this, is Randall Thor, who again is a popular YouTuber, really into investigating and looking into a lot of rumors and sort of discussion of potential future actions of Microsoft and a potential future in video games in general. So he's the one person mentioned, and based upon the sort of vague sort of allusions of being told that he learned this information from someone else. So Special Ed, he just provides the vague idea that I was told I could say something. He doesn't say from who, sort of like the Seasoned Gaming article. It's just sort of like, oh, we've got a reliable source, just trust me on it. This vague insinuation that somebody on the inside told him and that he was given the green light to tell everybody and just kind of forgot. But the only person he does cite as evidence would be Randall Thor. And I looked into Randall Thor. There wasn't anything on his social media that actually showed this. I didn't see anything on his Twitter page, and I searched through for anything Forza Horizon or Hot Wheels related. I didn't see anything on any of his tweets or his replies. The only thing I saw, and it was very brief, was from a video that he put out about a week ago discussing his personal speculation on what could be coming for Xbox in 2021, what we might be able to expect. So Randall Thor has a video where he claims, and this I should mention, I'll link all this and all the other video footage in the description or in comments under the video, but in the video it's basically just 3 sentences where he speculates that he has a feeling that there's going to be another expansion coming out. that he thinks that there's going to be, and that he predicts that they're going to reveal it within the next several months. That's all the information he provides on a potential Hot Wheels expansion for Forza Horizon 4. Note that in all of those instances where he talks about it, those are his exact words in order in terms of what he's saying. He's speculating what if this is happening, he's saying I think this is happening, and he's predicting based on his own personal feelings in his gut, just based upon where he sees things are going, that this is how it's going to be. That's about all the information he provides the viewer. And as far as information goes, it's, to be honest, it's the sort of thing that I could produce, that I could just roughly say, oh yeah, I think that they're going to do this based upon what I want or think. And I mean, that's basically what he's doing, and this isn't a burn on Randall Thor at all. He makes it very clear that this is his own personal speculation based upon his own personal conjecture on it. And with that in mind, this is the reliable source, as far as I can tell, based upon the Seasoned Gaming article and what Special Ed has said. It doesn't really seem to hold any water in terms of evidence that this is going to happen. I mean, it's about as good as some random YouTuber like myself going on and saying, oh yeah, I know that this is happening, and I'm not going to tell you who's telling you, but just trust me on this. It's definitely happening. It just seems like a bunch of unsubstantiated hype, because ultimately that's what it's become. Randall Thor made an honest conjecture as to what he's personally felt or had a feeling just in his gut might happen. Just speculation based upon, well, it's about time, and considering what's going on, it would make sense for them to do this. And that was it. And then, as far as I can tell, everybody else, just within the several days after that, decided to just jump on the bandwagon, and like a game of telephone, information just keeps getting warped and warped until eventually it's just that, oh, it's definitely happening, and this is all super strong evidence for this, even though ultimately the most evidence that there is a few guys saying, it seems about right that it would be happening. So that ultimately, just to go back to Ericship, he mentions about this, that because of the fact that Randall Thor is mentioning this, that his name adds a patina of legitimacy to this. That the fact that he has a million gamer score and he's followed by Playground Games, and that he speculated in one video that that's super strong evidence, and without wishing to offend anybody, without wishing to offend Ericship, I don't honestly see it. As far as I can tell, the evidence on the ground, my personal take, is that I'm just not convinced. All this quote-unquote evidence, it's either just casual speculation or unsubstantiated claims that at best seem to be based on either just bluster and bluff claims that, oh yeah, we have legitimate sources, but not showing them, which usually means that they don't have legitimate sources, or at best based upon the very casual speculation that potentially started this whole thing. Now, when I say all of this, I don't want everybody to think that I'm trying to be doom and gloom or trying to put a damper on what this is potentially going to be, or if this is potentially going to happen. I don't think that this is evidence against there being a Hot Wheel expansion for Forza Horizon 4. I just think that it definitely isn't. It's about as much evidence of a Hot Wheels expansion as me just saying, oh yeah, they're definitely going to make another Half-Life, game. They're definitely going to make Half-Life 3, and it's coming out in 5 days, and I've got a bunch of sources, but I'm not going to tell you it. That would be incredibly suspicious, and it would be completely unfounded, and it wouldn't be the sort of thing that you could reasonably go on and say, this is happening. So, considering this is essentially that, but coming from a bunch of different mouthpieces, just because it's coming from multiple people doesn't make it more legitimate. Just because multiple people repeat the same sort of contrived retelling of somebody's conjecture doesn't automatically make it truth. And with that in mind, while I'm not saying that it's definitely not going to happen, I don't see any of this being evidence for it. That said, I am of the opinion that it would make sense, and I am hopeful that Playground Games either will be or is currently working on something for this. And these are the reasons I believe it's possible, first and foremost of which is the simple layout of Forza Horizon 4. As opposed to other games which were a little more single-player focused, although they did have a good multiplayer component, this one firmly plants itself within the realm of multiplayer, and more specifically within the realm of live service games. So a model in which they continually bring out new content and the world continually changes in an effort to keep people more engaged and draw people in. Now, based upon this model and the ways in which this model has been presented and the ways in which they've continued to push it with update after update after update, it would seem to make sense to me that they would want to bring back more content that'll bring people in, that'll keep people excited. Stuff like the Koenigsegg Jesko, stuff like the new mid-engine Corvette C8. It feels like it is only a matter of time before they bring out something really big that's going to bring people in, because the nature of the model is, in order for it to continue being successful as a live service, they're going to keep needing to bring stuff out. And Hot Wheels seems like an easy get to get people back in. People absolutely loved the expansion in Forza Horizon 3 that had a bunch of Hot Wheels stuff and Hot Wheels tracks in it, so it only makes sense that they would be interested in pushing for a return to that in Forza Horizon 4. Another piece of evidence that I think, or I say casually evidence, but another reason that I look at it and think it's entirely possible is because, sort of in a way filling the void left by Hot Wheels, they recently put out in the Update 30, the Series 30 update for Forza Horizon 4, a new event type called Super 7, in which you can build your own tracks. You can really be creative and create your own stuff, and you can create stuff that is very similar to Hot Wheels. And more than that, a few of the assets within Super 7 are actually lifted directly from the Horizon 3 Hot Wheels expansion. If you'll notice, the Tyrannosaurus Rex that's in there is directly from the track in the Forza Horizon 3 Hot Wheels expansion. So reusing assets potentially suggests that maybe, just maybe, it's entirely possible, and this seems to suggest that. Also, just the simple fact that even with just the rumors, in a certain way, in and of themselves act as evidence that this is something that, at the very least, Playground Games could consider doing for Horizon 4 in the future, because even just with these few tweets, there's been rampant speculation. I mean, the Ericship video that I mentioned, it's got tens of thousands of views, and AR12 did a similar video that's got hundreds of thousands of views a while ago, speculating on a third expansion pack and it being Hot Wheels coming back. So Playground Games isn't dumb, and Microsoft and Turn 10 Studios, they're not dumb about this either. They know that there's a demand for this, and considering all the stuff mentioned before, how they've got all these assets lined up and how live service layout for the game ultimately means that they will have to continue bringing out new content in order to keep people excited and to keep the game going and keep it huge, it only makes sense from a logistical and a business standpoint for them to, at the very least, resurrect the Hot Wheels expansion from Horizon 3, if not make an entirely new one for Horizon 4. And with that in mind, such an expansion would also provide an opportunity for Playground Games to effectively fix a lot of the things that would need improving from the Horizon 3 expansion. Don't get me wrong, I would be incredibly excited if people who missed out on the first time around just got to be able to play the one as it was before in Horizon 3, and that would be amazing. It would be a wonderful opportunity for people to be able to experience something that licensing ultimately got in the way of them being able to see and enjoy. That said, I think that as a community, and just considering all the effort that's gone into everything else, we could definitely do better this time around. And with that in mind, I do have a list of improvements that I personally want to see for a hypothetical expansion to Forza Horizon 4, a hypothetical Hot Wheels expansion for Horizon 4. So in the original expansion, it was awesome. I'm going to be honest, getting this gameplay with the Lamborghini Sesto Elemento that's going on, it was a blast to get. It was a lot of fun just getting cannonballed through the entire course. There were moments of just pure ecstasy, but it also highlighted a lot of major issues. The central issue, which everything else sort of rolls around, is that the game, the feel as a whole, is very stop and go. There are a lot of emotional highs and lows. The highs of speeding down corkscrews and blasting at light speed past Tyrannosaurus Rexes and going through loop-de-loops. All too often, that gives way and is interrupted by losing momentum, by hitting either a barrier or another car, by not having enough speed to get through a loop-de-loop, but just falling straight down to the track below, upside down, or simply being flung in a way you didn't expect and flinging off the track. There are a lot of these issues that persist through that mode that would absolutely be great if Playground Games were to fix, recreating it for Forza Horizon 4. So with that in mind, here are a few of the specific fixes that I would absolutely love to see. So the first thing that I think would really help would be to make it so that, in terms of physics, the gravity of the game, that instead of it being attached firmly to the earth itself, to the ground, to have it actually attached to the Hot Wheels track itself. By doing this, this would ultimately prevent people from getting stuck on a vertical roadway. If they don't have enough momentum, it would mean that people going through loop-de-loops wouldn't necessarily just fall straight to the ground if they weren't going quite fast enough. And it would also make drifting around certain corners a lot easier. It would mean that people would be able to engage with the Hot Wheels track even more so than they were before. It would be something that would be much more engaging for players. I think that would be a wonderful addition to make it so that past a certain point, past a certain degree or angle of the track, the gravity would just have it so that the player was glued to the track and just acted as if it was on flat ground. I think that that would be a wonderful inclusion that would ultimately prevent a lot of these headaches and a lot of these issues and frustrations that people experience. Other than that, another thing would be changing the track walls. Now, I want to give props to Playground Games for the actual surface of the roadway that players drive across, because it is fantastic. They really did a great job of simulating that sort of slightly rubbery, sort of polyurethane orange material that Hot Wheels tracks are made out of. Really make it feel as though when you're driving along it, when you're driving through and sliding through corners, the shriek of wheels as if it's really rubber against plastic, the way that it sounds and the way it feels as it grips a little bit more and in more interesting ways. You can tell they really put a lot of effort into ensuring that it really did represent what we might think it would be like to actually build a Hot Wheels track to the scale of actual automobiles. And it does a fantastic job of that on the surface of it. The area where it isn't so spectacular is in terms of the actual guardrails and walls that hold cars in. In stark contrast to the soft material that the roadways are made of, it seems like the sidewalls for the track are made of an entirely different material despite looking like a cohesive whole. It just feels as though even if you rub past it gently, it's almost as if you're slamming into a brick wall. The sound that it makes is this thud, and it kills your momentum both in terms of physically, the speed at which your car is going, as well as psychologically. It just takes you out of it, and it just feels a little too hard and just sort of rough around the edges compared to the sort of more casual, childlike fun of the rest of the game. With that in mind, it would be great if they made the track walls not only to sound softer, but to be softer, where touching one or bumping against one wouldn't kill your momentum or your kill streak, apologies. It wouldn't kill the lines that you're able to make, and it wouldn't damage the skill streak. Apologies. I've been playing too much Call of Duty. But yeah, it wouldn't kill the skill streak that you have, and it wouldn't kill the physical and psychological momentum that you have. Let's be honest, those guardrails are there for a reason. With real Hot Wheels, they're there to make sure that the car stays on the road, and though they achieve that goal, they could do it in a way that's a lot softer, that feels a lot less like you're messing up or driving poorly when you're hitting them. So to make it be a little softer, in both in terms of the way it sounds and also in terms of the impact on your vehicle, to ensure that your skill streak could keep going even if you hit it, unless you hit it with a lot of force, to make sure your skill streak keeps going. All of those would be wonderful additions to help just maintain the momentum and the thrill of driving through this childhood dream of so many people come to life, to make sure that that stays alive and to keep the excitement going the entirety of the time that somebody's playing it. Aside from that, another thing that they could do that would really help to prevent momentum from being stopped, both, again, physically and also in terms of just the momentum of joy that you experience going through this, would be to program the drivatars a bit better. I realize that this might be less of a problem in Forza Horizon 3, considering the more Horizon Life online live service model that they're going for this time around. But even so, making sure that pedestrian vehicles and making sure that if you are going into Horizon Solo, that the Drivatar vehicles are a little more courteous, that they're perhaps taking up sections of the road less often, to make sure that they're much more easily able to avoid hitting the player, and make sure that if a player is thrown into a situation where they might hit, that they go through them. Something like that would be great, to make sure that you could just keep racing through, keep going through corkscrews and loop-de-loops and getting blasted into hyperspace and into the jaws of a T-Rex, to make sure that all those feelings aren't interrupted abruptly by slamming into something. That would be fantastic. The final thing that I think would be a really good addition would be to make sure that in areas where worst comes to worst, if someone, despite all these things, still manages to get flung off the track, to make sure that those players have an easy way of getting both back on their feet, both like flipping their car over, and are also more easily able to just drive straight back on the track. So have it so that instead of having isolated ramps along sections of roadway, have it so that there's steep banks that you can drive up and over back into the track, Those things would be a fantastic means of making sure that a player isn't just stuck in the middle of the shallow part of the ocean, just desperately trying to find a ramp to get back onto the road. Things like this would just also be great to ensure that players could be a little more casual in how they approach. They don't have to be so methodical in terms of discovering, okay, this is where I break and this is where I go, because worst case, if you get flung off, you can just fling yourself back and just keep going. More specifically with regards to flipping players back over, it's very easy for cars to flip over and have to be reset by the game. I think it'd be great if, just like in the Forza Motorsport series, the Playground Games crew implemented a mechanic, not just for Hot Wheels, but for Forza Horizon 4, period, where if your car gets flipped over, the steering adjusts to make it so that your car can be flipped back on all four wheels. That would be a fantastic inclusion. So yeah, those are just the things that I think would ultimately make it more playable. In short, the evidence provided, again, no offense to any parties involved, a lot of it is just wild speculation, but that's what it is. It's just a lot of wild speculation that doesn't really have a lot to do with the reality that we're in. It's just wishful thinking, and it's a good thing. It's good to be a dreamer, and at the very least it shows that there is absolutely a demand from the community as a whole for another one of these, for Lightning to strike twice, and for the expansion from Forza Horizon 3 to make a return in Horizon 4, that players really do want to drive Hot Wheels again and drive around loop-de-loops and along the orange tracks and everything. So at the very least, while I don't think this evidence is actually in any way legitimate evidence, it does give me hope to know that so many other people feel the same way I do, that this should make a return, that it should be available for people who missed out the first time around. And with that in mind, I'm hopeful that Playground Games, Turn 10 Studios, and Microsoft take notice that there is a huge community of people and a huge portion of the Forza community that really, really, really wants this, and that it would at the very least be very lucrative for the people involved. And with that in mind, and with the improvements I mentioned that could help make it even better than the one in Horizon 3, that's all I got to say about it. I'm not convinced, but I'm hopeful. I'm not convinced by the evidence provided, but I do think it's possible, and I'm looking forward to the possibility that the Hot Wheels expansion might be coming to Forza Horizon 4. So I want to thank you guys for joining me for this slightly more casual, slightly more off-the-cuff conversation about Forza Horizon 4. I'd love for you guys to comment down below, tell me what you think, tell me if there's any improvements that you feel could be added to the ones I mentioned. Maybe you don't agree with me. I'm happy to listen to that in the comments as well. I try to reply to every comment and every video that we get, and with that in mind, I would love to hear what you guys have to say. If there's a different expansion you want, maybe there's something like Jurassic Park in Forza Horizon 4 or something else crazy that you'd like to see. Regardless of what, just feel free to leave a comment. Hitting the like button helps us a lot, and hitting the bell also helps our channel a lot. And if you want to help support us to make sure that we can put out more content like this and better content than we are currently putting out, donating to us on Patreon is a fantastic way of helping to ensure that we can do that. The link should be in the description below. It provides you access to a bunch of stuff, like getting early access to certain videos that we make, to even being able to choose which videos we put out next. Regardless of which way you choose to support us, whether it's just liking the channel or whether it's donating money to us through Patreon and becoming a patron, either way, we really appreciate it, and it really helps us to put out more content like this on a more regular basis. Anyway, that's all I got to say about Forza Horizon 4 and the return of the Hot Wheels expansion. It was lovely having you guys here, and I want to thank you all for joining me, Mr. G, at Dank Swank, the classiest cavern on the World Wide Web.